say I have a plethora of piñatas?
Well, Wapo, I don't know if you have a plethora of piñatas, but I know you have a plethora of pass rushers. This is Tim, this New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. Want to talk about the curse of Eli Manning. Want to talk about the all of a sudden epiphany Giant content creators are having that the Brian Burns trade may not have been the best trade humanly possible for the New York Mets. You want to know why? Because you want to know why I meant I got the Mets on the mind. Because it's this.
Let's go. We got the teamwork
to make the dream work. Let's go, Mets. Oh, you know it's time for the New York Mets after that big win last night. As a Met fan since '81, it's been fun. Those two innings in Atlanta were just spectacular, and then that win last night against the Milwaukee Brewers, which was just so fun to watch. And we were talking about curses earlier because of the fact that, you know, I always say that we are cursed, the Mets, ever since that Tommy Glavine game years ago.
This place is cursed.
Shea was cursed. Well, not Shea, but Citi Field's cursed. Because of the fact that we relied on Tommy Glavine, the former Atlanta Brave, to come in and win a game for us to get us into the postseason, and he came up and choked. Choked like a dog on a bone. I've always said this. We had to beat Atlanta to exorcise the curse of Tommy Glavine. We had to win that first game. And the skies parted. Zeus came down from Mount Olympus and said,
"Thou shalt win."
And that's what happened. The Mets could be a scary team. If we can get past the series, the Mets are going to be a scary team. And that's kind of what I think about with Eli Manning.
This place is cursed.
We got this game in Seattle against Geno Smith, who happened to be the quarterback that broke Eli Manning's consecutive game streak. It was really the coaching staff and management that did it. And ever since that day, we have been cursed. We have been cursed here. MetLife, the hollow grounds of MetLife have been cursed. And I find it interesting that the only time the Giants won this year was when Eli Manning was put on the Hall of Fame ballot. So once Eli Manning gets into the Hall, I then believe the curse will be lifted. I feel that. And it's interesting that we're going into Seattle to play Geno Smith again with the quarterback that replaced Eli Manning. Two quarterbacks that replaced Eli Manning again. So once we get Eli into the Hall, the curse will be lifted.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that on us.
I'm going to have to put it on us, pals, because we got to get it done. We got to get it out of the way. All of a sudden, I'm watching the YouTube feed for the Giants. And I always say this, and there are some good content creators. I don't really watch any videos. I get snippets from people that they send it to me, and I got to thank the likes of C. Williams and James and Zach Attack, and I know I'm forgetting people who send me clips all the time from other Giant YouTubers, and there are some guys that do some quality stuff, and there's some guys that actually do some things where they think and they think about what they're saying before they're saying. I could think of Big Dash. I could think of Mr. Authentic at times. I think it's Talking Giants. They don't make me want to throw up. Chat Sports makes me want to throw up because all they do is just make shit up. But there is a segment of content creators that actually have a thought process not only about the Giants but about football. And now I'm seeing videos that Brian Burns may not be the best fit for Shane Bowen in his defense. Oh no, fucking shit. Really? It only took you 4 games to figure that out, considering some of us have been saying since the trade that this trade made 0 sense because you basically went out and got a carbon copy of Kayvon Thibodeaux? It's our favorite sound effect.
Submitted for your approval. The Ghost Brothers. Nobody needs to be afraid.
It's the Ghost Brothers because they always disappear. One of the things I said during this trade was my biggest fear was that Kayvon Thibodeaux and Brian Burns were going to have games where they both disappeared. Because if you look at their body of work, you look at the Shane Bowen defense, there's a large sample size, almost 5 years with the Titans. You look at that body of work and you see that this system is not really made for these two players. And you brought in Bowen already before you went out and got Brian Burns. What about Brian Burns? And I always hearken back to the NFL Network after the Giants made the trade and signed him to a $120 million deal. And I said the same thing, that it was a good trade in reference to the assets given up. It was, I shouldn't say it was good, it was fair. But the problem is, and they said it first before I did, you paid $120 million for an 8-sack guy. It's not like Brian Burns had only been in the league for a couple years. It's not like Brian Burns does not have a body of work. But the problem is you're going off one really good season, which is where he had 12.5 sacks, 63 tackles. But you don't look at the other sacks, 7.5, 9, 8, and now he's got 1 sack in 4 games. So he's on pace for like 4.5 sacks this year, which I think he'll get to his 9. But the problem is this, and this is why I laugh about certain Giant content creators. They're all like, well, he doesn't really fit the system. Well, no shit, Sherlock. If you were going to go out and get a player like Brian Burns, who to me, in my mindset, is strictly a pass rusher, he does not play the run extremely well. He's not good. He's not known for his ability to set the edge. He's not known for his ability to push the traffic into the inside, into the strength of the Giants defense. He's not known for these things. He's known for going after the passer, after the quarterback. That's what he's known for. Now, Kayvon Thibodeaux is the exact same thing. He's a guy that doesn't play the run well. He's a guy that doesn't know how to set the edge. He's guys that doesn't know how to maintain his assignments. And if he's not backed up by a quality linebacker, you just continuously run off tackle. We said this during training camp. And I kept telling people, this is my biggest fear, that the league is immediately, I saw it in the preseason games, and I said, oh my God. In the limited time the first team defense is out there, in that one game they were out there for almost 3 quarters, all teams need to do is just run right at Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux. Forget about the middle of the field. Just run off tackle, because they are never going to push the play back into the middle of the field because they can't maintain their assignments. And the over-aggressiveness that they are going to have at getting the quarterback is going to be used against them to their detriment, because of the fact that teams will completely understand all we need to do is wait till they over-pursue and delay handoff. Just do a little delayed handoff. That's it. Do a draw. That's all you got to do, and go right at them. Do not be afraid. And we're seeing this about the yards and yards and chunks of yards that the Giants give up to, I'm going to say, are better than average running backs. They had an okay game against the run against Cleveland, but Cleveland's offense lost both offensive tackles, and they don't have a running back. You got Ford and the other guy. So they were able to at least be somewhat respectable. They didn't shut it down. And same thing with Dallas. Dallas has 0. Dallas is waiting for Dalvin Cook. That's how bad the Dallas running game is. And they still ran against the Giants with Rico and Zeke. I always wanted to be called Rico. I always thought that was a cool name. If I ever get in trouble and I ever have to leave the country, I have 2 synonyms names. I'm Lars Van Den Heuler is my one name, and Pablo Sanchez is my other name. So if I ever have to leave the country, those are the names that I'll be using. So I got to come up with a new name with Rico. But now all of a sudden, giant content creators are looking at us saying, well, you know what? This might not be a good fit. Oh, you mean a guy that likes to generate his pass rush with 4 guys who's now bringing the safety because he sees he's not getting the rush from the 4 guys in the middle of the field, who is then taking on passing downs and moving Dexter Lawrence to the defensive end position? Kind of just figured out, hey, this guy doesn't fit my system? Because I run almost a Tampa 2 style zone defense that is a bend not break. And I love it because when we first got Shane Bowen, and I watched because of Malik Willis, I watched the last 2 years of Tennessee Titan games. And I kept telling people that he only likes to rush 4. I kept telling people this. He runs a 4-man front when he goes in the rush. And people are like, well, no, he runs a 3-4. No, if you actually watch the film in Tennessee, he generates a rush with 4 guys. And at times he will drop his ends into coverage. And I'm not saying that neither Burns or Thibodeaux are athletic enough to drop back into coverage. But what I am saying is it's not their forte. It's not their skill set. They're not. I mean, if you had an Aiden Hutchinson, then yeah, okay, I could see that. But Brian Burns at 6'5", 250 pounds is more of a hand-in-the-dirt defensive lineman. But the problem is he doesn't have the skill set to fit in the Shane system. Same with Thibodeaux. Thibodeaux is a carbon copy of Brian Burns. I do think that Brian Burns has more of a plethora of pass rush moves than Kayvon Thibodeaux does at this point in time. When we drafted O'Shane Ximines out of Old Dominion, he had 10.5 sacks his last year in college. And I laugh because I usually buy like one weird jersey, and I bought an O'Shane Ximines jersey, and I laugh because people go, that's a Carl Banks jersey. I'm like, no, I'm not Carl Banks. That's a Harry Carson jersey. I'm like, no, it's actually an O'Shane Ximines jersey. But one of the things with O'Shane was he was extremely athletic, but he did not have an abundance of pass rush moves. And that was, he used his natural ability and talent and speed and quickness in college to have that big season. And he never learned really any additional moves in the league right now. He never learned anything. And it's one of those things that you watch him play and you're like, okay, he's literally got one move. And I'm not saying that Kayvon hasn't been learning, but I find it interesting that Kayvon really just doesn't seem to have, he doesn't have that skill set. To me, he just hasn't been making those moves. He just hasn't been doing what he needs to do. And I laugh because O'Shane right now, he's on the, he's in New England, I believe. I think he's in New England. And I worry that Kayvon, who is trying to rely more on natural ability and natural talent in this league, that doesn't work. That'll work for a period of time until teams start figuring you out. That's why we have the sophomore slump. And yes, I understand that Kayvon's in year 3, but we have almost a 2 years and we have 2.25 seasons sample size work from Kayvon Thibodeaux. And I think Kayvon Thibodeaux is going to be an 8-sack guy as well. I think we just overestimated the value of his position when he came out of Oregon. I've said this before. There was always rumblings at Oregon that he was lazy at times, that he took plays off, Kayvon that is, and I didn't believe it. I was like, well, from the games that I saw, he never looked like he took plays off. But then you watch him here and how disinterested he is at times and how he can get blocked by Jalen Hurts. We love that picture. We use that on the live stream all the time. And how sometimes he is completely taken out of the game. And we've talked about the fact about how he gets basically pushed out of the play by the tackle because he has this propensity of going wide with his rush and taking it way too far towards the sidelines before cutting it in. I said this before when he had the problems last year. He needs to cut his rush back in the inside. He can't keep going so wide. And the problem is also when you go wide against the rush and you think it's the rush and you go wide and it turns out to be a run play, you leave your linebackers out to dry. You leave your second level players out to dry. So honestly, I think both of them are having their issues because of the fact that they are in a system that doesn't fit their talents. If you still would have had Wink and you still would have ran this similar style defense, I would sit there and tell you this makes more sense. That's what I would tell you immediately. This would make more sense because you were going to go more to an attacking style defense where you can literally use their ability to go after the quarterback. And if you had a defensive line coach who taught them properly in regards to cutting the plays back inside, you could have the opportunity and the ability for more sacks and have the ability to push the rush or push, I should rephrase that, push the running back into the strength of the field, which is Dexter Lawrence. The Giants need to figure it out, and the Giants need to figure it out quick. Because I'm not saying that, like I said, you can't fire Shane Bowen because he was a bad hire. He's a hire that just didn't make sense. You can't fire him for that. But you need to adapt your system more to your players. Because the problem is right now we're trying to fit players that don't fit into a system that they can't play. And I think the biggest issue is this. I think we need to understand this. And if we have that understanding, we'll have the ability to be better. It's like Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is not a deep ball passer. Sorry. He's just not. So your propensity to try to have him take the deep shot when he's got no arm. Daniel Jones has never had a great arm strength. I've always thought that was so funny because people are like, Daniel Jones, he's got such that arm. He was 7th in the league in deep ball throws. Yeah, and we talked about this before. He's 7th in the league in deep ball throws. But the astute fan went and took a look at the fact that he's 7th in the league, but he only threw the ball 13 times. And the player that had the next amount of attempts was 44. And the 2 touchdowns he had were not deep ball passes. They were broken plays by Darius Slayton. One was in the Texans game where he almost threw the interception, and Slayton was lucky enough to get the ball, stay on his feet for, I don't know how he did it, stay on his feet and run, and just take off past the defender for like 70 yards. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it a million times. The Giants are a cut and paste team. We're cutting and pasting guys into roles that they're just not meant for. And I think if you're going to have the likes of pass rushers like Thibodeaux and Burns, you have to play to their strengths immediately. And that's what you have to do. And the fact that certain Giant content creators are all of a sudden coming around like this is a big epiphany. Like they just discovered uranium. It makes me just laugh even more. I don't know, guys. I'm just thankful. You know what? I'm thankful for the Knicks. I like the Karl Anthony Towns trade. Knicks Unleashed is coming out. I think we're gonna come out on Monday of next week is the very first episode. It's going to be the podcast episode of New York Knicks Unleashed, the 2024 season. It's going to be here on this channel, and you can find it every place that podcasts are, where you can download podcasts. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But I just gotta thank God for the Knicks. Oh, we're gonna have a lot of fun shows. We got the Sunday Giant stream coming back strong this Sunday. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And as always, don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ring that bell because you want to know why. That'll be awesome.